Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to another episode of the Concession Stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and this is the review of the new Netflix film directed by Zack Snyder, Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire. Yes, everybody, this is another highly anticipated film this year. I'm a big Zack Snyder fan. I like his work. I enjoy his work. Now it is more style than substance when it comes to Zack Snyder. You know, I fully acknowledge that. But I enjoy it. I mean, going all the way back to Dawn of the Dead, Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, 300. The dude knows how to make movies visually. Now, you know, his storytelling elements, they can be kind of muddled at times. I'm with that, but you are never going to sit down and watch a Zack Snyder film and not be in awe of all of the visuals and the way he shoots certain scenes, and just be amazed by the style that he has. It's very unique the way he shoots films. Now, I'm not saying that his films don't have substance at all. There is substance. It's just style outweighs the substance. But I enjoy his films, and I was really hyped up for Rebel Moon. I remember when they announced this, and I was like, okay, this looks interesting. And then when the trailers came out and they announced that it was going to be a two-parter, it's two films, I was like, okay, sign me up for that too. I'm all for this. Rebel Moon, which stars Sophia Bertella, Jarman Hensu, Charlie Hunnam, Ray Fisher, Ed Sheeran, and believe it or not, Anthony Hopkins. Yes, this film is set in a fictional galaxy ruled by the Mother World, whose military, the Imperium, threatens a farming community on a moon. Kara, a former Imperium soldier, ventures on a quest to recruit warriors across the galaxy to make a stand against the Imperium before they return to the moon. This film is very derivative. It is very Seven Samurai, Star Wars, Magnificent Seven, which is derivative of the Seven Samurai. But yeah, it takes elements from a lot, and I'm not knocking it for that, because you can say every film, quote unquote, borrows from other films in the past. It's not too many stories that aren't kind of loosely based on other material. And this was a lot, though. I saw Seven Samurai all through this. And to be honest with you, Star Wars is kind of derivative of Seven Samurai. George Lucas has came out and admitted that much, that old samurai films were the inspiration for Star Wars. So it's all linked up together. But this is truly a Star Wars-y film, or not a parody, but a version of Star Wars that you could see in the Star Wars universe in a galaxy far, far away, which isn't out of the realm of possibility, because this film comes from the mind of Zack Snyder, who pitched this idea to Lucasfilm for his Star Wars film. He was trying to get a Star Wars film made, and this was his idea. Lucasfilm declined. They chose not to go this route. So he decided to go his own route and make it his own with the help of the folks over there on Netflix. Let me say this about Rebel Moon Part 1. I'm not super excited with it. I was kind of hesitant. It took me a day to actually start recording this after I watched it because I had to let it sit. You know what I'm saying? Because I walked away from it kind of like, okay, it really didn't move the needle for me. I know that there's a part two coming in April of next year, so that kind of a unfinished, empty feeling you got at the end of the movie is understandable because you're going to get the other part in a couple of months. So that is explainable. That's understandable. But throughout the film, this film was so full of scenes where we just explain what's going on. It was spoon fed. You know what I'm saying? It was a lot of, well, with the flashbacks, we get flashback stories, and for almost every character, and it's like if we got to go through and explain every single backstory for every single character, no wonder there's a part two. They might as well make a third one as well because it was so lengthy. I don't mind you telling your story, but it was so lengthy and it took up so much of the runtime in this film. This film is 2 hours and 15 minutes long, and about an hour and 30 minutes of it is expedition. I was like, man, I cannot take this. Let's get to the actual story that's moving forward. And it just it just threw me out of it. I was like, bro, let's get to the meat of this film. And by the time we get something interesting, the story starts to flow a little bit. It goes off. It goes off. I'm like, oh my god, come on, man. It just took too long to get it ramped up, man. And quite honestly, I was actually bored through a good portion of this film. The little twist swerve that we get at the end of the film, you saw coming a mile away. It didn't disguise it at all. It like I said, it was formulaic. We've seen this before. We've seen this story before, and so it just did not grab me or have the reaction that I guess they were hoping you would get. Um, when that little twist happens at the end, it just came off as lazy. To me, it just came off as lazy. I did not like that at all. I did the whole story, to be honest with you. The whole story was kind of like, what are we doing? The whole movie is Kara going around the galaxy and gathering these soldiers, but it's just one. They'll stop at one planet, grab this one guy, go to another planet, grab this one guy, which it all comes up to be about 7 people, you know, Magnificent Seven. Hello. And it was like, what are these 7 people going to do against an army, a literal army? It made no sense. But fine, if they want us to go on this journey, let's go on the journey. Now, let's break down this cast, starting with the lead of this film, Sophia Bertella, who, I enjoy as an actress. I think she's good for the films that she's been in. Nothing to knock your socks off, but she's been serviceable. She was in Kingsman. She was in Atomic Blonde. She was also the Mummy in that horrible Mummy film with Tom Cruise. But this is like her first starring role of a big, blockbuster film, even though it's on Netflix. But this is her first starring role that I know of. So the big question for me going into this, could she handle it? Could she handle being the star of a big film like this? And when it was all said and done, I would say, yeah, she she did. She's one of the few things that I actually enjoyed in this film. I think she did a decent job for what she was given. And she did a really good job. She handled the emotion of it all. She definitely handled the action, and I enjoyed her. I enjoyed her in this film, even though her character was it's so lazily written. This whole film was lazily written. Uh, just gonna be real with it. But she did the best she could with it, along with everybody else here. Nobody else was bad, as far as the acting is concerned. It wasn't any bad acting in this film. It was just the writing that these actors had to work with. Um, German Hensu, he was great for the few seconds he was in this film. I should say seconds, minutes that he was in this film. I thought we was going to get, especially his introduction, the way they were talking about him before they got to him. I mean, I was hyped up to see. I'm like, oh man, this dude is a beast. The way they're describing him. Then when we get to him, he's a drunk. He's, you know, it's like, what is this? What is this? And he comes around. By the time he comes around, the movie goes off. And so there's that. And Ray Fisher, who you may know as Cyborg from the Justice League, he's in this film for a few minutes as well. And it's like, oh come on, man, they are really cheapening us on these performances here. It was whatever. It just didn't work. Now Anthony Hopkins, this is a 2-time Academy Award winner here. He was good. He was the voice of the droid in this film, and I like that, But the problem was, we got to that point that was in the beginning, and it just left that. We didn't hear him no more. We didn't see him anymore to the very end, and like, what's the point of his character? Now, once again, I fully acknowledge that we are getting a part 2 to this. I know a lot more of this will be explained or flushed out probably in part 2, but if you're going to split a movie in half, you have to kind of give us something to look forward to when the second half come out. I'm not looking forward to the second half of this movie. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. it just did. None of the story elements worked in this film. Yet, it's not a dumpster fire. It isn't horrible. I enjoyed the visuals. Like I said to start off this review, it's Zack Snyder. He's not gonna cheapen us on that. It looks amazing. The visual effects here looked amazing. The way it was shot, the way the action was shot. You get the typical Zack Snyder isms, the slow motion and all this here. You get all that in there, and he does that well. There's no denying that with him. I love the locations. Everything looked good. The costume designs, the hair and makeup effects, all that was great. And when you sit down and compare it, and I know it's unfair to do this, but when you compare it to other space operas, i.e. Star Wars, Star Trek, stuff like that, this doesn't really compete with that. This film, I don't know, it just didn't work. There's no point sugarcoating it. This was pure eye candy, but the eye candy wasn't enough to offset the storyline faux pas throughout this film. It was a mess. It honestly was a mess, and it was kind of disappointing because this was hyped up to be Zack Snyder's Star Wars. You know what I'm saying? So this was supposed to be a big deal, and for a lot of Snyder heads out there, that was exciting. I was excited for this, but once it ended, I'm like, well, I can understand Lucasfilm's trepidations about going forward with it. It just didn't work. It's less Star Wars and probably more Jupiter Ascending, if you want to be. Well, that's not fair. Jupiter Ascending was just a trash movie, but it's closer to that than it is to Star Wars. So, and I'm talking some of the worst Star Wars. I'm not even I can't even put it up there with Rise of Skywalker. You know, I can't even put it there with the prequels. It is just, it's a mess of a movie. And I'm hoping that once we see it all in its totality, once we get part 2 in April, that we'll get a clearer picture. So I'm optimistic in that sense, but this first part of this saga, not good, not good. Not good, but it was decent. It was fun to watch. It was pleasing to the eyes and the senses, I'll give it that, but not to the brain. Rebel Moon, which is currently on Netflix, directed by Zack Snyder, gets a letter grade of a C minus. It was what it was. I am, yeah, I'm disappointed. I really am. I was trying to find other words to describe it, but it's disappointing of of a film. But I would like to know, what did you think of Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire? Did you enjoy it? Or you think I'm being too harsh? Like, give it time, Kevin. Watch the second part. Okay. I'd like to know your opinion. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also look up the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network, as well as YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire. Can't wait to speak to you again. I want you all to have a happy holiday season. Merry Christmas. Want you all to know that I love you. Continue to love one another. And until we speak again, you all be blessed.